Welcome. And thank you so much for joining us this evening to discuss planning for the future of Clermont State Historic Site. I'm Linda Cooper, the Regional Director for the Taconic Region of State Parks, and we have 11 regions statewide. The Taconic Region reaches from the northern edge of New York City to the southern tip of the Albany area. Excuse me, it encompasses the counties of Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, and Columbia along the eastern side of the Hudson River. Clermont State Historic Site in Columbia County became a state historic site in 1962, and it was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1973 and remains an anchor in the 1990 Hudson River National Landmark District, known colloquially as the Great Estates. Anyone who has stood on the Southwest Mansion lawn and looked out toward the Catskills, the Saugerties Lighthouse, and the magnificent Hudson River knows that beyond the people that lived there, Clermont is a special place. The seat of New York's politically and socially prominent Livingston family, Clermont was home to 7 successive generations of Livingstons. Each generation left their imprint on the site's architecture, its room interiors, and its landscape. Robert R. Livingston Jr. was Clermont's most notable resident. His accomplishments include drafting the Declaration of Independence, serving as the first U.S. Minister of Foreign Affairs, administering the oath of office to George Washington, negotiating the Louisiana Purchase, and developing steamboat technology with Robert Fulton. He and his mother, Margaret Beekman, are pivotal in the stories that we tell at Clermont. In the coming years, we look forward to telling the untold stories of Clermont, as well as those that we're familiar with. As an agency, we seek to bring a balanced narrative to the public awareness that includes the indigenous people to the Tivoli and Germantown area, the enslaved and free Blacks who lived and worked on the estate, the Palatines, the indentured servants, and all those who lived and worked on the estate, as well as the Livingstons. These are stories that will link this site with many of our other state parks and sites. Today, Clermont appears much as it did in the early 20th century, when it was the home of the property's last 2 generations, Mr. and Mrs. John Henry Livingston and their daughters, Honoria and Janet. Our role today is to look at this property and determine how we should approach its preservation, its interpretation, its landscape, and visitor management for the next 10 to 20 years. Through ongoing research and new interpretation, we seek to create a more inclusive environment, more reflective of our multicultural past and welcoming to all. Those looking for stories, those looking for a place of respite and rejuvenation, and those seeking to understand their place in history should be able to find it at Clermont. During this evening, you will learn about the master plan process, the environmental review and scoping process that defines its content, the sections of the plan, and how best to share your thoughts and perspectives with us. We'll review some housekeeping and as noted, review what makes a master plan. We'll ask you to step into breakout rooms for some targeted conversation and then regroup to recap the discussions and take additional comments. You'll learn the timeline we are on and meet the people who are working on this project. Joining me this evening are the following staff members. And I think since most of them are on video, we'll ask them to sort of wave their hand while I call them out. Most of you know Susan Boudreau, Clermont's Historic Site Manager. Garrett Jobson is our Capital Facilities Regional Manager. Nathan Wenzel is our Trails Planner. Rebecca Ferry, Stewardship Specialist. Emily Robinson is the Clermont's Coordinator of School Programs and Social Media. Tim Dodge is the Park Manager for Maintenance at both Clermont and Olana. Those people all work within the Taconic region and are, although Garrett is part of a capital district that includes 2 other regions. Other agency staff that is here as participating in this online meeting is Diana Carter, the Assistant Division Director for Planning and Analysis. Tana Bigelow, the Park Planner, who is really the Chief Architect of this master plan and will be facilitating much of the meeting. Mark Hohengasser, an environmental analyst, will be handling sort of all of the major parts of the environmental review for the master plan. Kirsten Gustafson, who is Clermont's own, we totally claim her. She was our interpretive program assistant and then went to become head of interpretive programs for all of the agency working out of Peoples Island, our historic preservation office. So Kirsten. And Madeline Goodman, who is an Excelsior Service Fellow, who is the guru of technical parts of this of our program tonight. And thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to your participation in the master plan. And I'm going to turn you over to Madeline, who is going to assist with letting us know how to handle going into breakout rooms and what the technical aspects of going through this particular workshop online means tonight. So thanks again for coming out tonight.
All right, hello everyone. So as you might have noticed when you entered in, you were muted automatically. So we're asking you to remain muted until we go into the breakout session, which is further on down in the meeting. And so if you do want to unmute in breakout sessions, you can see down below that your toolbar at the bottom has an unmute button as well as a video button if you want to start or stop your video. And if you have any questions at all during the session or comments, feel free to use the chat box and we will address most of the questions in the breakout session, if not at the end of the entire meeting. And so to get us kind of started, we have a poll to kind of get us excited for this discussion. So in 1 second, we will have a poll come up on your screen. And so the question is, what is your favorite time of year to visit Clermont? And on your computer, it'll be on the right side of your screen. And on your phone, it will pop up and you will have the option to vote in this poll. So we'll give you about a minute to select what is your favorite time of year to visit Clermont. And I believe you all should be able to see the results. It looks like winter is 16% of people's favorite time to visit, and then spring is the winner with 42%, and then summer was tied with winter with 16%, and then fall is second place with 26%. All right, Tana.
Thank you. Wow, I would have thought it would be maybe summer. I'm surprised that spring won by so much. Anyhow, thank you and welcome everyone. As Linda said, this is Tana Bigelow. I'm a planner. I'm based in Albany. And what I'm going to start out with is just talking about the master planning process a little bit and but the real purpose of today's workshop, aside from letting you know about the master plan, is just to find out your knowledge, your experience. We want insight from those of you who have used the site a lot, who've maybe only used the site a few times, and find out what works well there, what could be improved or changed, and how would you like Clermont to look over the next 10 or 15 years, because that's the period of time that usually a master plan covers. Okay, so the question always comes up, why are we developing a master plan? There are previous master plans for Clermont. There are 2 early ones and then an update. They're quite outdated, and the last one was in the 80s, I believe. And so we really need to address today's interests, what our needs are at the park for demographic changes, or what are some maybe requirements that we're not meeting at the site. So without a plan, a facility may develop piecemeal, or it could develop in ways that don't take the big picture into consideration. And that can impact the visitor, how the visitor experiences the park, and it can impact the natural environment or other important park elements. There are 2 sections to a master plan. The first part is the master plan itself, which basically is an overview of the park, and then also talks about what are the main actions that are proposed in the plan. The second section is the environmental impact statement, and that is where our environmental analyst gets involved and looks at all the actions that are proposed and tries to determine what are their impacts, and if there will be impacts, what can we do to mitigate the impacts. The environmental impact statement also describes the existing conditions at the site and discusses a list of proposed actions and, if needed, their mitigation, as I said. So one of the first things we do when we're developing the plan is to take a look at what's already there. What is the site already offering the public? Clearly, it's a beautiful site, but as the planning team looks at the site very closely, there you will see there's a number of things that develop that into, well, this needs to be addressed, that needs to be addressed. So obviously we have the historic infrastructure, the buildings, gardens, and the landscape there. We've got the object collections, trails, views across the river, which you know, are a big popular reason that people come there. We've got a great staff. We've got education programs, interpretation, a wonderful friends group, volunteers, other partners, and then obviously we have the natural areas at the site. So we look at existing infrastructure. That's going to be one of the discussion points for today. What's there already? Buildings, roads, parking areas, pedestrian paths, whatever the people, when they come to the site, what are they using? What are the issues with some of the infrastructure there? Current condition and needs. What is the potential for some of the historic buildings? Are there options that for different kinds of uses? A lot of them need a little TLC or a lot of TLC. We look at the roads and the parking. How's that functioning? How's the circulation? You know, how do people move about the site? We look at accessibility. How are the natural resources doing? What kind of wildlife we have there? Energy efficiency. We really look, it's very, you know, sort of global look at it from way up, a drone's eye view of what's going on at the site. And another big issue is climate change and how that might affect the site. We look at the activities. The outdoor recreation is one reason that people come there, but people also come there for education, school programs, school groups come. There are interpretive signs on the site that that when I'm there, I see people looking at and are interesting to read. We have tours, and then of course there's special events like we just had the Sheep and Wool Festival there. We look at the significant buildings. One of them is what is referred to as the Red Barn or the McVitie Barn. It's a great building. It has a lot of potential. What's the best way to address this building? If it needs some upgrading, it needs some work. It's fairly stable right now. We have a lot of information about its condition, but the master plan will look at what are the possibilities for how this building could be used and bring into a more active use in the site. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Madeline for our second poll.
All right, so the second question we have is, how old were you when you discovered Clermont? So once again, it will be on the right side of your computer screen, or on their phone, you should get a notification asking to open up the poll. And we'll give you about a minute to choose. All right, so it looks like the majority of all of us have found Clermont when we were in our 30s to 50s. And other than that, 51 or older came in second place.
Okay. Thank you, Madeline. So what I'd like to move into now is our discussion section. We are going to do something fun and innovative, I hope. It's new to us, so if there are any technical issues, please bear with us. We've been practicing, so I think we should be pretty good at it by now. But we're going to break into 3 different groups, and there will be 3 different subject areas that you're going to be able to pick from, and I'll show you those in a minute. Participants can ask questions, you can share ideas. There's going to be there's a couple of people from park staff. That's why we have so many people on the meeting today, because we have all people from in our 3 different categories who can answer questions or give you responses to any ideas that you might have. So there'll be someone in each group to help you, and there'll be a tech person too to help you. So the way it's going to work is you're going to choose 2 groups that you'd like to join, the subject area, and you'll have 15 minutes for each group. You'll join the first group for 15 minutes. Then we're going to all go back to the main meeting room, and I'll show you how to do that in a sec. And then you can join a second group. So we'll have 30 minutes of discussion time in the breakout rooms, and then we'll all return to the main room for a recap. We'll find out what people talked about. And during this time, you can listen, you can speak, you can write comments in the chat box, any way that you would like to participate. The topics are for Breakout Room 1 is education. That'll include interpretation, programming, groups, tours, anything like that. Breakout Room 2 is outdoor recreation. So the trails, hiking, biking, walking your dog, watching the sunset, birding, any of those things having to do with nature and outdoor exercise and things like that. Breakout Room 3 is infrastructure, so that has to do with the buildings, the roads, historic preservation issues, archaeology, anything physically, any of the physical environment at the site. If you have questions, concerns, or ideas about, you can join Breakout Room number 3. So there'll also be some, Linda and Diana are going to be in the stay in the main meeting room, which is where we are right now. So if you have other questions or comments or tech issues or anything like that, you can go back to the main meeting room anytime for help, and you'll see in a second how to do that. So whatever issues you have, just we always have sort of a backup for you. And I'd like Madeline to sort of run us through how you're going to go into the breakout rooms now.
Okay, so it might be a little helpful to know that I've just activated them. So this means that on your computer or phone, go to the Participants tab, which is going to be in the bottom right area of your screen. And then after that, and so after you click Participants, you should be able to see that it says Show All Breakout Sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, you'll get a window that pops up, and it will show you which rooms there are, and you can feel free to join any of those 3 rooms. And if you have any problems joining, we will move you ourselves. You just need to let us know which room you're interested in going in. So feel free to begin moving over there now, and I will remain here to help move you over if you're unable to navigate this.
Yeah, so we'll have 15 minutes in our rooms, and then you'll get a warning, and we'll all be sent back to the main room. Thank you, Madeline.
Mm-hmm.
All right, how'd everybody do in the breakout rooms? I think,
Great.
yeah, we thought that they were kind of fun. I hadn't done it before, and Madeline was really helpful. So let me get to my slideshow here. All right, can people see my screen?
We can.
Yes, good. Okay, so what we'd like to do now is to have the people who were facilitating the breakout rooms just give an overview of what was discussed, and just to give us an idea. And then if people have other questions that they want to bring up, then we can take questions as well.
All right.
Yeah, group
I'll
one.
go first for the education recap. So hi everyone, this is Emily Robinson speaking. Lively conversation, both sessions, a lot of fantastic feedback. We got a lot of honestly lovely feedback about our current programs, that we've got a creative group of people working here, and that the steps we've been taking already to serve the idea of whole history at Clermont are doing well, and people enjoy them, and more people are coming to our events because of them, which is fantastic. Specifically, our 4th of July, we had several readings of Frederick Douglass's "What is the 4th of July to a Slave" speech, which is really powerful, and I enjoyed that as well. We heard feedback about connecting the history of Clermont to other historic sites and other important people throughout the Hudson Valley. suggested several different sites and how that information connects, also with schools. Looking forward to people saying that they would like to see more connection with local teachers to create curriculums and things like that, especially for 4th, 7th, and 11th graders, because those are the grades that focus on U.S. history. Looking at my notes here really quickly. We need to talk about the undertold stories of the people who lived here who weren't Livingstons, especially the enslaved people who lived here, and questions about how one goes about that. And that was some really interesting conversation there. We had a really interesting question about if education and infrastructure, if the education and infrastructure portions are being made in tandem, if the decisions we make about where funding goes and what buildings are important have to do with the education at the site, and prioritizing long-term goals, things like that. And ultimately, I think it was a lovely conversation, and I was really happy to hear everyone's thoughts.
Thank you, Emily. Outdoor recreation, you want to go ahead and give a recap?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do the recap because I was taking some notes for it. So I'm Rebecca Ferry. I'm the stewardship specialist for the region. So we were talking about, there was someone brought up some concern over the lack of trees. There hasn't been trees planted there recently. So just there's concern over the lack of having a next generation of trees because they're older. So there is interest in seeing more trees planted in the park. There was discussion over if the bathroom is being relocated, and we have had discussions during the master plan about it would be nice to relocate the bathroom, but we're not sure exactly where in the park that might be. And it would be nice to install a low profile viewing platform in its place from which you could see the Hudson. There's so with the layout of the barbecues, just they seem to be scattered throughout. So some people would maybe like to see them maybe in a couple, 2 or 3 groupings, whereas others might like to see individual barbecues so that it's more private. And there was talk about the Empire State Trail, and the Empire State Trail does go through the park. And it's I don't think it's officially on a map though. There's someone mentioned that with Woodstock Land Conservancy, he wrote a geology guide and it was interested in exploring the possibility of doing that at Clermont, which would be great, and we love to partner with people. So Madeline has posted in the chat our planning email, so you can always reach out to us with any of your ideas. There's interest in maybe seeing some programming for things like spring ephemeral wildflowers or foraging. I'm not sure if foraging would be as doable, but definitely spring ephemeral wildflowers would be a great topic. There's also with birding, someone was mentioning that it's great to have that the trails are highly accessible during the morning hours, but it would be great to have more access to where you have the waterfront views to view the waterfowl that are on the Hudson. So there was also talk about maybe potentially seeing if we could look into maybe doing some kind of binocular set at the viewing platform. But not one that, not like one of the quarter ones, though. That would be a little harder to manage. And then there was someone that was concerned about how her family abuts the park on County Route 6, and she was noticing or mentioning how she's noticed that with EHD, epizootic hemorrhagic disease affecting the deer, last year. It's actually been it's surfaced twice in a row, 2 years in a row, which is unusual in New York. And so there's just concern over the hunting that occurs in the park. They're not necessarily against the hunting, but that it's nice to know that we are aware of it and working with DEC to make sure that we're not hurting the deer population with the hunting that occurs there. And that was it.
Great, thanks, Becca. Our infrastructure group, Susan, you want to do the recap?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank my partners in the group, Garrett Jobson and Tim Dodge and Tana, of course. Our midwife, as I'm calling Tana. I think people had a lot of different interests. I think there was interest just in the general infrastructure around all of the different buildings, the road circulation, and accessibility were main topics. Volunteers came up. We had a question about volunteer groups, how to encourage and volunteering in the site, and how we could build a volunteer program with Friends of Clermont. There was a question, how does the state determine what are the priority projects? Let's say the Red Barn versus Clermont Cottage. And our plan will look at preservation, restoration, and adaptive reuse, and those options for the different buildings. Capital improvement plan, Garrett shared, are developed annually by the agency staff, focusing on the Hudson River District. Priority projects are ID'd in the fall. Master plan will develop the capital improvement priorities. That will be part of what we do for each section of capital projects. We are looking for new ideas, and the contact information Madeline is sharing, and there will be a slide about that at the end. People had questions about road traffic and circulation. We had interest from the town of Clermont, which we will be following up on, and collaborating with our many partners in this process, and Friends of Clermont and the town are just two, to name it two. We are looking at a change in our main entrance location. It's being considered as part of the plan, and people asked about making sure there was, they were informed of this process. About making links to the Empire State Trail and our trail system here. I think that was a great question, and that will also be included in the master plan. A whole with our trail coordinator Nate, who is on the call today. We are looking at all our trail system and how we can highlight what that. And I think we're already seeing a link with the Empire State Trail. We have a number of bike groups that are contacting us as well. How to give ideas for repurposing the buildings. Again, there's contact information at the end of this. We welcome all your thoughts and suggestions as we work on this process. We had a wonderful geologist who I think has been in a couple rooms, who has also done programming for us. And Dr. Titus, we were very happy that you joined us. And he's offered to share some wonderful information, which will be included about the geological history of the site. And I think that's will be a great addition to that. Accessibility. I think that has been a question that many people had, and one visitor described her experience here trying to negotiate gravel surfaces in a wheelchair or a walker. And we are already beginning to address that, and I think that will be a wonderful, hopefully, part of this master plan, a whole accessibility plan for the site. We had questions about Sylvan Cottage. What are our plans for Sylvan Cottage? We're still in the process of consideration, so please provide your feedback and ideas about Sylvan Cottage or the barn or any other buildings. We had questions about housing for enslaved people that lived at Clermont, and other historic information about Errol House. You can reach out, I also said, to the site as well as to the planning contact here, and they will forward that about if you had specific historic questions that you're looking for research information that we have currently. I think it was a great group. We had a lot of varied questions, and I thank everyone for participating.
Great, thank you, Susan. So let's get the main room to give us a recap.
We just had a generalized discussion of what was going on in the 3 breakout groups for the person that was not able to get into the groups, and questions came up also on Sylvan Cottage, wanting to repurpose it and its relevance also to the harvesting history program, the barn repurposing, some of the issues associated with the road, the back road. If we were going to do anything to enhance the structures there, we also have to look at the condition of the road because it washes out a little bit. And Diana, you want to add anything else? Or quite frankly, Craig, if you would like to add anything else? We were just 3 of us, Diana, Craig Deal, and myself.
No, I think you covered it well. We did have a visitor in the second half of the breakout rooms, like in breakout room 2. And we had a discussion about the Friends group and how they've been working to reuse the gardener's cottage, which is now what we've referred to as, remind me, Linda.
Clermont Cottage. And actually, since I sent a note to Jennifer in the chat, but she may not have seen it, Charles Houghton is looking for photographs of the cottage if you can connect, since he contributed toward its renovation. We talked about the Friends having renovated that particular facility and how wonderful, how it's used now to house the Livingston Library, the Friends offices, and is used for lectures and meetings. And there is still a second story of that structure that is not yet renovated. Also, if you want to add anything else, feel free.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
All right, we got one more poll. Madeline, are you up for this?
Sure. So our last poll is, what would you like to do at Clermont that you cannot do now? So you can type in a short answer, and there should be like a word cloud that populates with all of our answers. And we'll give you about a minute if you want to type in a short answer. All right, I'll close it. I believe you all can see the word cloud that we all created. So
Take a nap, tour the complete house, not just the ground floor, more tours, main house, horse-drawn carriage rides, walk by the river, tell undertold stories, get lunch, take an elevator to the top floor of the main house, access and understand the relationship of all the buildings, have more unobstructed views of the river. Oh, these are great. Did I miss anything? All right, well,
that's it.
yeah, thank you. Those are great ideas. So I'm going to move forward. We're getting towards the end here, but I just wanted to make it clear that you're going to have multiple opportunities to provide input. We're going to have, I hope, an open house on site one of these days, if possible. We may have another similar kind of participatory public workshop. There's something that we have to do during our environmental review, the seeker comment period. There's a scoping document, which is what it's called, which will, our environmental analyst will generate a scoping document required by the seeker process to describe what types of projects are being proposed in the plan, and gives a comment period that you'll have an opportunity to get online and make comments on that. And we've done a couple of very small public surveys. We might try to do another one. The weather got in our way in the past, and then we've been working more on these public workshops. So you'll have other opportunities. Timeline, our next steps, as I said, the seeker scoping review period will probably happen late spring and summer. Hope we can do a public open house maybe in late summer or fall. We'll publish at some point a draft master plan and draft environmental impact statement. So that will be the whole document in draft form, which you'll also have an opportunity to look at in its entirety, I hope, in fall or winter going forward. And then once we have the public comment period, and we will incorporate whatever public comments, we will eventually we will publish a final plan, and there'll be a formal adoption of the plan, and that probably won't happen until spring or summer of 2023. So that's just a quick overview. I just want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to submit their comments. I know that people wrote in great stuff in the registration form for ideas that they had or the things that they wanted to see addressed. So since we have a few minutes, if anybody wants to bring up any topics that were not addressed, I can, let's give you the opportunity to do that now.
Is there any plan to continue the work on that new trail that's kind of starts on County Route 6 and then ends on Woods Road? It's a lovely trail and I'm enjoying it, but it kind of dumps you off onto Woods Road, and then you have to kind of like meander down Woods Road to either get onto another trail on County Route 6 and make your way around through the cedar forest, or walk through on the back road. I'm just wondering what the plan was when you laid it out initially.
Does Nate or Susan, Tim, and anybody familiar with this trail that wants to respond to that?
Sure. Are you referring to the north side of County Route 6 or the south side?
North side.
Okay. And Tim or Susan may be able to elaborate more on the history of it, but from what I understand, that trail has been there for a long time. And it actually goes through a wetland, and our idea right now is that we're going to close that trail to protect that habitat.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I think I've only been aware of it for about the past 4 or 5 years, and I live right across the road from it. So if it was over, then I just missed out, I guess. But okay.
Yes, if I could just comment, and maybe Rebecca wants to comment. We have found in beginning the master planning process and surveying of all of the natural resources, we have found a wetland that we just want to protect because I think it's a valuable wetland. Becca, if you're still on the call and you want to comment on that. So I think that's about, protecting the wetland if the decision is made to close that area.
But Nate, you can also maybe tell a little bit about what we are doing with the trail system.
Yeah.
Sure. So we reviewed the trail system as a whole. We're evaluating which trails are getting used and which ones aren't. We're not planning on making too many changes to the trail system, but we are evaluating its layout. We're going to develop a signage plan, improve wet sections that we can, and mark the trails so they're easier to follow for people in general, and create some loops.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I could also say, Kim, in particular, just what you said, that other trail dumps you kind of somewhere nowhere and doesn't have a sense of connectedness. So I think as we look through the whole trail system, we try to develop a system that makes sense.
That's great. Thank you. The trails are lovely, by the way. You guys do a great job.
That's
Anybody-
Tim. He's on the phone too.
And
Yes.
thank our maintenance staff, and we're very grateful.
Anybody
you,
else
Rose.
have anything final they want to bring up before we close? You can always email comments to me. If you could just do it within the next week or so, I'll get the email that goes to clermont.plan@parks.ny.gov. And if you want to send it in regular mail, you can, here's my address at 625 Broadway, 2nd floor, Albany 12238, Town of Bigelow. And you can also look at other master plans that Parks has developed and are now adopted. You can look at the regular Parks website, and if you go down to the bottom of the page on the website, you'll see master plans. You click on that, and there's a whole lot of different kinds of plans. There's statewide plans, there's trails plans, other historic site plans. So it's a good idea. It's a good way to get a look at what planning is about with parks and the historic sites and parks. So we have just a few more minutes. Did anybody want to make some final statements or
I would like to.
comments?
I just wanted to thank people for joining us this evening. And this is a small group, but an engaged group. And in particular, we thank the Friends of Clermont, who are our stalwart partners in everything Clermont. And we appreciate the investment of time, expertise, thoughts, money, and devotion to the site. The neighbors, we really are glad. If any, Kim, you said you lived across from the site. If any neighbors are critically important to us and live with Clermont every single day, and any other stakeholders that are part of the Germantown, Tivoli, area, it's really important to us that we understand what you're thinking and how Clermont plays in your lives. And we're very grateful for your input as we develop, a document that will be dynamic. Nothing when you create a master plan, it's not that you follow it verbatim, because things change and evolve as our society changes and evolves, the economics change and evolve, but it gives us a path, and it gives us a direction to follow and a place to go that we hope directs us in an inclusive and exciting and comprehensive way as we look toward the next 10 or 20 years. So thank you again for taking the time this evening to be with us. And thanks to all the staff that actually took time after their busy days as well to join on the call and be part of this conversation.
All right, thanks, Linda, and also appreciation for your being game for the new format with the breakout rooms. It seems like everybody did really great. So I hope it was informative and enjoyable. Maybe a little entertaining. I don't know. But thank you all very much. And with that, I think I'll close out the meeting. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.